My mom handed my car keys to my sister at dinner. She has kids. She needs it more. I just made the last payment that morning. I said, sure. I called the bank, reported it stolen, and went to bed. At 2 a.m., my sister called from a police station parking lot. Mom picked up the phone and screamed, "Tell them it was a gift," the officer said. "My name is Benjamin Carter, and I'm 36. I'm an internal medicine physician in Columbus, Ohio. 3 months ago, my mother handed my car keys to my younger sister across a birthday dinner table and said, 'She has kids. She needs it more.' I had made the final payment on that SUV that morning." Rachel smiled before her fingers even closed around the keys. Then she looked at me and added, "You work all the time, Ben. It's not like you even have a real life." A few people laughed, not because it was funny, because people laugh when cruelty is wrapped in confidence. I remember staring at my water glass and hearing my pulse in my ears. My mother sat there looking pleased with herself, like she had just delivered wisdom instead of theft. Rachel leaned back in her chair with my spare key dangling from one hand like the transfer was already complete. They thought I would do what I always did. Absorb it. Smile tightly. Stay calm. Be the mature one. I learned early that in my family, be flexible meant be invisible. So I looked at Rachel, then I looked at my mother, and I said, sure. That single word settled over the table like surrender. It wasn't. Because the title was still in my name. The registration was still in my name. The insurance was still in my name. And at 7:42 that morning, I had made the last payment to the bank and saved the paid-in full confirmation to my email. They didn't know I had every document. They didn't know I had spent years paying for that car alone. And they definitely didn't know that a family fantasy falls apart very fast when a police officer asks one simple question: who actually owns the vehicle? By 2 in the morning, my sister was calling me from a police station parking lot, crying hard enough to choke on her own words. My mother was screaming into the phone, "Tell them it was a gift." Then the officer said, calm as winter, "Ma'am, your mother can't gift property she doesn't own." That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Because that dinner wasn't one ugly moment. It was the public climax of a pattern that had followed me most of my life. My sister was always the center of gravity. I was the structure built around her. When I was 8, my mother combined my birthday with Rachel's 10th to keep things simple. What that meant was a purple cake Rachel picked, Rachel's friends in the backyard, Rachel's music, Rachel's candles, and a small science kit handed to me at the end like somebody had remembered a second child existed halfway through checkout. I asked my mother that night why my name wasn't on the cake. She was scraping frosting into the sink. "Don't be dramatic," she said. "It was for both of you." I looked at the candles, the decorations, the glitter banner that literally said, Princess Rachel. Then why did everything look like hers? She shut the dishwasher with that sharp final movement she used when she wanted the conversation to become my fault. "Because Rachel notices things," she said. "You're the strong one." That was the first family lie I learned by heart. Strong meant easy to disappoint. Strong meant expected to accept less. Strong meant nobody had to wonder how I felt because my feelings had already been classified as manageable. At 13, Rachel decided she wanted my bedroom because it was bigger and got more light. She stood in the doorway of my room crying while my mother folded her arms and acted like the issue was already settled. "She's starting high school," Mom said. "She needs space." "I'm in school too," I said. Rachel wiped at her face and said, "You always get the better stuff." That was so absurd I actually laughed. My mother didn't. "Why does everything have to be a battle with you?" she snapped. By Saturday, I was moved into the smaller room facing the alley. Mom called it temporary. It stayed mine until I left for college. Rachel got my space. I got a lesson in generosity. That was the system she wanted. Mom decided. I adjusted. When I was 16, I won a statewide scholarship. It covered a huge chunk of college and came with a recognition dinner. For a few hours, it felt like something clean, something earned, something nobody could reassign. At dinner that night, my mother read the letter twice and said, "This helps all of us." "It helps me go to school," I said. "It helps this family," she corrected. "Maybe now we can save more for Rachel." Rachel looked up immediately. "For cosmetology school?" Mom smiled. "Maybe." I remember just sitting there looking at them both, realizing my achievement had lasted less than a day before it got absorbed into her future. Later that week, I overheard Rachel on the phone saying, Mom says Ben finally being useful is going to help me too. Useful. That word stayed with me for years. Not smart, not disciplined, not deserving. Useful. By medical school, I understood the role clearly. Rachel was the one life happened to. I was the one expected to solve whatever happened next. During residency, after a brutal overnight shift, my mother called asking if I could babysit Rachel's boys all weekend because Rachel needed a break. I'm on call, I said. Switch with someone. That's not how this works. Families help each other. I was standing in a hospital stairwell, exhausted enough to lose my filter. That sentence only ever goes in one direction. Silence. Then the sharp inhale. Then the familiar guilt. A day later, she texted, "You hurt Rachel's feelings. Not are you sleeping? Not how are you doing? Just the old family law. Rachel feels, therefore Benjamin is guilty." After residency, I got my attending position, bought a townhouse, and started building a life that was finally mine. Not flashy, not extravagant, just steady, orderly, mine. Then Rachel's husband started disappearing in cycles. Her finances got worse. Her minivan died. The boys needed rides, then school clothes, then groceries. I helped more than I should have because the children were innocent and because some stupid, hopeful part of me still thought generosity freely given might eventually be recognized as generosity. It never was. Mom turned every act of kindness into precedent. I paid for repairs on Rachel's van once. Then twice. I covered 1 month of rent after Troy vanished. I bought new shoes for one of the boys after he quietly told me his toes hurt. I did those things because I loved my nephews. My mother interpreted them as evidence that everything I had was family inventory. Then I bought the SUV. Used, reliable, safe, clean. Good in bad weather. Perfect for my commute and long clinic days. I put down a large deposit and made every payment myself. I handled the insurance, taxes, maintenance, all of it. The first time Mom saw it, she ran her hand along the hood and said, "Rachel would love something like this." I said, "Then Rachel should get one." She smiled in that way she had when she decided my answer was temporary. Over the next few years, the hints became pressure. Rachel needed something safer. Rachel needed more space. Rachel's boys deserved reliability. Rachel couldn't keep struggling like this. Underneath every sentence was the same assumption. Eventually, Ben will hand something over. Last winter, Mom called and said Rachel's transmission was gone. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "She needs a car. She needs financing. Her credit is terrible. Then she needs to fix her credit. Do you hear yourself?" I did. For once, I sounded like an adult instead of a family resource. "Yes," I said. "Do you?" She hung up. Rachel texted me that night, "Mom says you don't care if my kids are stranded." I wrote back, "I care if your kids are safe. That does not make me responsible for providing you a vehicle." She didn't answer. 2 weeks later, my mother sent me a picture from a dealership lot. Rachel was standing beside a crossover she clearly couldn't afford, smiling like she expected me to appear with a signature. "Thoughts?" Mom texted. I answered, "None that involve my money or my name." That should have ended it. Instead, my mother planned an audience. Her 62nd birthday dinner was at a steakhouse downtown in a private room. 26 people. Family, church friends, cousins, my nephews, Aunt Denise. Whenever my mother said, "No drama tonight," it meant she had arranged some. That morning, before I got dressed, I logged into my bank account and made the final payment on the SUV. I stared at the confirmation longer than necessary. Paid in full. 5 words. 5 years. I printed the receipt and put it in the folder in my office with the purchase agreement, registration, and insurance records. That detail would matter later. At the restaurant, the little cuts started early. Rachel complained about gas prices while glancing at me. One of Mom's friends asked if I was still not married. Rachel answered for me. Ben's relationship is the hospital. People laughed politely. Then Mom raised her wine glass and started talking about sacrifice. About mothers knowing where need was greatest. About blessings being shared properly. It was rehearsed. I knew that before she even reached into her purse. When she pulled out my spare key and held it up between 2 fingers, the whole room went thin and bright. Rachel's eyes lit up. Mom smiled at the table and said, "Since Benjamin just finished paying off his SUV, and since Rachel needs something reliable for the boys, I think it's time this family did the right thing. Then she dropped the keys into Rachel's palm. She has kids. She needs it more. Rachel laughed and added, "You work all the time, Ben. It's not like you even have a real life." There was laughter. Not all around the table, just enough. Enough to make it public. Enough to let them believe humiliation would finish the job. Aunt Denise said, sharp as glass, "Marilyn." Mom ignored her. Rachel jingled the keys and looked at me like a cashier waiting for approval. I could feel my throat tightening. My chest, too. Not because of the car, not really. Because in that moment, I understood with humiliating clarity that my family did not see me as a person whose consent mattered. They saw me as a stable source, a thing with a paycheck, a thing with transport, a thing expected to convert effort into rescue on command. Don't cry here, I told myself. Not here. So I took a sip of water, set down the glass, and said, "Sure." Mom actually smiled wider. "There," she said to the room. "See? He understands." No, I thought. You just don't understand what you've done. I stayed another 20 minutes, long enough not to become the spectacle they wanted, long enough for them to settle into certainty. Rachel thanked me twice in that smug, breezy tone people use when they think your boundaries are ceremonial. When I stood to leave, she shook the keys and said, "Thanks, Ben." I looked at her and said, "Drive carefully." Outside, Aunt Denise followed me under the awning. "You're not really letting this happen," she said. I smiled without warmth. I said, "Sure." She stared at me for a second, then nodded once. "Call me tomorrow." I drove home, went straight to my office, opened the folder, laid out every document in neat rows across the desk. Then I called the non-emergency police line. I gave them the make, model, plate number, VIN, and my ownership information. I explained that a family member had taken possession using a spare key without authorization and was claiming the vehicle as a gift from someone who did not own it. The officer on the line asked, "Are you the titled owner?" "Yes." "Any active lien?" "No." "Paid in full this morning." "Did you give anyone permission to drive it?" "No." His voice sharpened slightly, shifting from confusion to clarity. "Understood." Then I called my insurance company and documented it there too. After that, I brushed my teeth, turned off the kitchen light, and went to bed. At 2:03 a.m., Rachel called. I answered on the fourth ring. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Ben, oh my God, where are you?" "In bed. I'm at the police station." "What happened? What happened?" she shouted. "I got pulled over because your stupid car got flagged. Stolen. Your stupid car." I sat up and switched on the lamp. Put Mom on. Mom was already there. I heard her grab the phone. "Benjamin, tell them it was a gift." It was not a gift. "Don't do this," she hissed. "The boys are here." That stopped me cold. "Why are the boys at a police station at 2 in the morning?" Rachel grabbed the phone back. We were coming back from Jason's friend's birthday party, so she hadn't just driven it home. She'd spent the evening using it like it was already hers. I said, "Put the officer on." There was muffled arguing. Then a calm male voice came through. "This is Officer Daniels. Benjamin Carter, owner of the vehicle." "Yes, sir. We confirmed that. Your sister says the car was gifted to her by your mother. It was not. My mother is not the owner and had no authority to gift it." A pause. Then, away from the phone, I heard him say the sentence that blew up the whole fiction. "Ma'am, your mother can't gift property she doesn't own." Rachel started crying louder. My mother launched into some speech about family, misunderstanding, and emotion and intentions. Officer Daniels came back on the line. "Sir, do you want to retrieve the vehicle tonight, or would you prefer we hold it pending release in the morning?" I thought about my nephews half asleep in a parking lot. I thought about the absurdity of my mother still trying to bully reality into changing shape. "Hold it," I said. "I'll come in the morning, and I do not authorize anyone else to drive it." "Understood." Then he asked for the report. "Did you ever, at any point, explicitly give your sister permission to take possession of the vehicle?" I thought about the word I'd used at dinner. "Sure," I answered carefully. I said, "Sure," after my mother handed her the spare key in a crowded room. I did not transfer title, sign anything, or make any gift. My response was not consent. A brief silence. Then he said, "That's clear enough." Rachel snatched the phone back. "You're ruining my life over a car." "No," I said. "I'm refusing to let you take mine." Mom came on screaming. What kind of man does this to his sister? The answer arrived so cleanly it almost felt peaceful. The kind who got tired of being stolen from. Then I hung up and went back to sleep. The next morning, my phone looked like a disaster. Missed calls, voicemails, texts from relatives who had somehow gotten drafted overnight into a theft-themed morality play. How could you? The boys were terrified. It was a misunderstanding. Family shouldn't involve police. That last one almost made me laugh. Aunt Denise had sent only one text. Proud of you. Call me after you get the car. At 8:30, I went to the station with my folder. Officer Daniels was older than I expected, tired-eyed and matter-of-fact. He glanced through the documents and nodded. Everything checks out. Vehicle's yours. He handed me my keys, my actual keys. Cold metal, ridiculously satisfying. Then he said, "For what it's worth, you handled it correctly. We see this more than you'd think. People confuse access with ownership." That line stayed with me. People confuse access with ownership. That was my entire family system in one sentence. I signed the release and asked, "Do I need to go inside?" He almost smiled. "If you want my professional opinion, no." So I didn't. I drove straight to a locksmith and had the locks rekeyed. Then I changed my front door code, my garage keypad, and my hospital emergency contact information. My mother had been on that list for years. I removed her before lunch. Paperwork calms me down. It creates lines where manipulative people prefer fog. That afternoon, Rachel texted, "You embarrassed me in front of my kids." Not "I'm sorry," not "Mom went too far." Just that. I replied, "You took a car that wasn't yours in front of your kids. That embarrassment belongs to you." She shot back, "You always thought you were better than us." That was the family defense mechanism. If I objected, I was arrogant. If I told the truth, I was cruel. If I stopped them, I was cold. Mom tried a softer tactic that evening. She left a voicemail in her tender church voice, saying emotions had run high and maybe we should discuss expectations. Then, almost casually, she added that Rachel still desperately needed transportation. There it was. No apology. Just a reroute. I texted back, "There will be no discussion. You gave away property that did not belong to you. Rachel drove property that was not hers. Do not come to my home. Do not ask for my vehicle, my keys, or my money again. Contact by text or email only." She called immediately. Twice. I did not answer. Over the next week, the story kept collapsing every time my mother told it because people asked a question she couldn't twist. Whose name was on the title? Mine. That was the end of every argument. A few relatives went silent when they realized no guilt check was coming. A cousin texted, "I always thought they leaned on you too much. Sorry I never said anything." Aunt Denise came over with takeout and zero curiosity. She sat at my kitchen counter eating noodles and said, "Your mother called me selfish for supporting you." I laughed for the first time since the dinner. Denise shrugged. "A boundary only feels cruel to people who benefited from you not having one." That line hit me harder than all the shouting. Because it was true. 2 weeks later, Mom showed up at my hospital anyway. She was waiting near the outpatient elevators with that smile she used when she wanted access to look maternal. "Can we talk?" "No. I am your mother, and this is my workplace." Her face tightened. Rachel's car situation is getting desperate. Of course it was. Even now, after everything, she was still pushing toward the same target. Not remorse, not repair, just acquisition. I said, I meant what I wrote. She made a mistake. You made the plan. That landed. Her eyes hardened. "You think one career and one car make you judge and jury?" "No," I said. "I think ownership matters, consent matters, and I'm no longer available for this." Then I walked away. That afternoon, I emailed hospital security and requested that neither my mother nor my sister be granted access beyond public areas without my permission. Again, paperwork. A month later, I sold the SUV. Not because they had won, because I didn't want to keep driving a vehicle that had become a symbol of family entitlement. I bought something smaller and less noticeable. Reliable, quiet, unremarkable. It felt clean. I also updated my will, changed a few beneficiaries, and named Aunt Denise as my medical power of attorney. That decision shocked some people. Good. Shock is useful when people have confused blood with rights. The final message I sent my mother was in October after she left a voicemail saying life was too short for grudges. I texted back, "This is not a grudge. It is a boundary. You publicly gave away property that did not belong to you, encouraged Rachel to use it, and then demanded I lie to police. Do not contact me for 6 months, except for true medical emergencies involving you or the boys. After that, I will decide what level of contact, if any, is possible." She responded with 3 paragraphs about forgiveness, disrespect, motherhood, and Satan. I blocked her number for 6 months. Rachel, I blocked permanently. The boys can find me later through Denise when they are old enough to understand the difference between help and theft. That was the part I actually mourned. Not losing my mother as she was, losing the fantasy that one day she might become different. Here's what I know now. People who benefit from your silence will call your voice cruelty. People who benefit from your access will call your lock betrayal. People who built a role for you inside their dysfunction will panic when you stop performing it. I will never again confuse being competent with being obligated. I will never again let "but their family" outweigh paperwork, consent, or self-respect. And I will never again sit calmly at a table while somebody shrinks me in public and mistake my restraint for surrender. A few weeks ago, I cleaned out the drawer near my front door. At the back was the empty ceramic tray where I used to keep spare keys. I held it for a second. Then I put it in a donation box. Small thing. But it felt right. No more casual access, no more assumptions, no more volunteering for the role of stable son, backup wallet, emergency transportation, and convenient villain whenever I said no. My name is Benjamin Carter. I'm 36. I'm a physician. Every day I tell patients that untreated problems do not become harmless just because people avoid naming them. My family was no different. I didn't ruin them. I just stopped letting them call theft love.